Yeah.
Okay. I can say if you guys want.
Oh, we're good with whatever you choose.
Okay, I'll just say it.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, we love thee so very much. We're grateful for the many blessings in our lives. We're grateful for this gospel and that it has created an outlet for us to meet together tonight. And Heavenly Father, help us to have a good discussion and help us to feel of thy love. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Are you guys, so are you on a time limit?
I am, because I have another meeting with my teacher at 7:30. So, I think it'll be ample time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So this week I wasn't able to finish the case study. I wasn't able to read it and stuff. Okay. So, should I just ask you guys questions, or what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Okay. So, what is going on in the case study?
That's the question.
Right. So a quick summary.
Wow. A lot of mayhem is going on with the case. I think there's just I guess they have an issue with safety. And so their challenger, unfortunately, Challenger, and what was the other one? Columbia. Duh, the title. Both of them actually met with tragedy. So I don't know how much of a nutshell you want me to put that into, but that's my nutshell. Basically, they're having some communication problems, and it led to the destruction of both shuttles.
Yeah, and there was a lot of recorded foam loss, debris would hit, and so they would lose foam, and so it kept happening, and they never really went into they don't know why it happens. They don't think that it affects the flight plans, but it's something that keeps happening, and instead of fixing it or addressing it, it's just an accepted flight risk. So they're just kind of oh, it's fine, it doesn't do any harm or damage or anything, instead of taking the time to look into it. They're just
Isn't that crazy? Because it's funny, because so that was, let's see, and the O-rings. So O-rings and the foam strikes were the two major issues that which really kind of, you read it, really ticks you off, because they downgraded both of those concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure as we go on, we'll get more in depth. I don't want to jump ahead, but to me, those were two of the major issues, is downgrading. So there needed to be some more protocol or policies put into place.
Yeah. And so when Columbia took off, it got hit. And so there's a large chunk missing of the foam hit, and they didn't realize how big it was because their cameras were lacking the capabilities to see it. And so it took them a long time to figure out how big the damage, how much damage there was. And then even after that, they were supposed to create this Tiger team, which is analysts, engineers, everybody comes together to look at the debris, but they didn't. They just kind of created a management team. And so they didn't know who they were supposed to get research from. They didn't know who they were supposed to report to. And so it caused them to not fully see the issue. And the Columbia, when it was trying to land, it blew up and lost the lives of its crew members. So
right,
that was another thing that happened.
Yeah.
That's what's going on in the case. And even after the Columbia blew up, who was it? Say
the
engineers, a spokesperson for them was they still didn't think that the debris was the cause of the loss of Columbia and her crew. And he says there's got to be another reason. So he was still even downplaying the concerns even after it had crashed and lost 7 lives.
Yeah. I guess if I wasn't paying attention, I'd probably say the same thing. Yeah, I don't know. There's always more to the story, I guess, but it was, to me, just after reading that, it's pretty evident that they totally And I guess I can understand in some ways is because they're, the flights, they had so many flights and they figured, well, yeah, we're losing this and it's, we have foam strike, but we still seem to continue to go on. But you would think at that point that they'd say, you know what, this has been going on and yes, we've had successful flights, but this isn't supposed to be happening. And so somewhere along the line, something's going to be weakened. We should actually look into this. And yet nobody did. And I used the tagline from the five dysfunctions of the team. And it's like growing in the wrong direction or different directions. And that's kind of what this reminded me of. Their teams, they had so many, they just like grew vastly, and they had 15 centers and they're all over the United States and such. And I think that's why they had such a poor communication. Nobody really wasn't, they're in charge, but nobody really filtered through and stayed in contact and kept the communication going. And I think that that they, NASA was rowing in the direction of budget and schedules and wanting to do what they wanted to do and succeed at what they wanted. And all the other teams who were, the mechanical side, technical side, to me, were all into the safety part of it. But those two would never be able to kind of communicate. And even when, I forget who it was, Morton and I forget the Bijajli, I don't know how to say his last name, but like they were trying to say, hey, we have an issue with the Columbia. There's, low temperature is going to really affect the O-rings. And it was really discouraging because he's sitting there trying to kind of plead his case, but he didn't really put a lot of oomph into it. Like he should have really stood his ground and say, hey, no, you guys need to listen to me. There's an issue. But instead he kind of just let things go. And because of that, I feel like they just kind of didn't take it seriously. So they had some major communication issues with safety.
Yeah, and like another thing too, the engineer said that they were discouraged to talk against like protocol or like tell the managers what was going on without factual information to back it up. Otherwise, they didn't want to hear it. So they were kind of like, unless you prove to me this happens, we don't want to hear it.
Right.
There's no real communication in there.
It's interesting. So what do you think about that statement? Because I do remember reading that, and it's just thought that is totally not acceptable. And I can understand from their perspective. Yeah, don't give us stuff that we don't want to waste our time on. Give us factual stuff, but it seemed to me that things were moving pretty quickly, and they should have. I still think they should have given it some weight.
Yeah, I do too. But what can you do?
But they didn't ask us, so
I know.
So, are the questions that I'm supposed to be asking are like the ones that we were supposed to ponder?
Yeah, okay. So under like the case study activity.
Okay, sure. So what is interesting? Well, I guess we kind of just talked about that. You guys kind of just went over that. How would you start the discussion? Does that make sense?
We kind of already did.
Oh, okay. If you look under the case study activity, there's the Lesson 8 group discussion agenda that you can click to, that link. I just saw that.
Okay. Downplaying the ambiguous threats. So what's the recovery window in this case? The time between when the problem of the foam strike was discovered after launch to the day the Columbia exploded.
Oh, wow.
It was what? How many days? Like, it was only it was like 16 days, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. 16 is. I remember reading that.
Well, oh wait, no, I think it was 8 days.
Was it? No. I thought so. Their flight was 16 days, right?
I thought so. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at page 8, And it's talking about, okay, flight 6 day, let me see.
Like it goes to 8. I think it's like I read 16 somewhere, but I don't remember where.
I don't either, and that's what I'm thinking, because now it's talking about day 7 final effort, and also okay, so flight 7. I'm just kind of trying to see where they day 8.
Oh yeah, here it is. The Columbia's 16-day mission.
Yeah.
Here it is. Yeah, so they had it was struck with it by the debris on the 16th, and then they didn't really see what the actual damage was until the 17th, and so they had the 17th until a few days before it landed to figure out what was the problem, to find an end to it, or to fix it or find a better way to do it, but they just couldn't do it.
So the other question that I was looking at is, why did the debris strikes become an acceptable risk?
Yeah.
I think it was just because it happened so often that it didn't cause really any issues. Like, they were able to land and come down. They were able to launch and land without any problems. And so they just accepted it. They're like, well, this is happening, but it's not affecting how the shuttles are, flying. So it became accepted. They couldn't figure out why, figure out how, but it didn't affect them.
That's exactly what I would have said. Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason.
Okay, so when did the problems with the Columbia mission begin?
I think it was that first day. Well, I don't know, because they were saying before that, like, the Columbia was the one shuttle. They said it was great flying, but it always had problems launching and landing. But in flight, it was great. So I think it started before it took off.
Sheesh, I should have put all the time dates. I didn't do that. I remember reading them, but I didn't do that.
How would you guys characterize the culture at NASA, like the strengths and weaknesses of NASA?
Wow. So I think that the major weakness is their communication, a lack of communication between the departments. The next weakness is downgrading. They needed to look at that and have better protocol on when and how and what constitutes an acceptable downgrade, not just, I don't know, I just felt like they just like, hey, it looks good, so don't worry about it, and they just downgraded it so they could go ahead and ignore and go on. So that allowed them to supposedly resolve the issue to where they didn't have to look at it. So I think downgrading was a major weakness.
I agree.
I mean, as far as strength, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I think that it was strength is obviously they did, amazing work, and they, were successful in a lot of ways, but, not taken away from that. But to me, and of course I love the space program. I think it's awesome. We should definitely be doing that more. But it's kind of like, after reading something like this, I just think, wow, I don't think that it was really worth the lives of those people. They were too focused. Their other weaknesses, they were focused on like time, schedules, and it was just, I'm just kind of amazed by it. I thought it was interesting too, because the other weakness is underestimation. And so I think it was I can't remember if it's a Challenger, I think it was, where they got a good budget, and they worked, it was a tight budget, but they could work within it. And they thought they were building one of the best and safest shuttles, and so they left out the escape hatch.
Yeah.
Is that insane?
Yeah. It's like it would work, and so they're like, we don't need an escape hatch. It'd be fine.
Yeah, we'll just cut another part of the budget out. So yeah, so those are pretty, to me, strong weaknesses.
Yeah, mine is like they didn't follow protocol either. Like with that,
No.
they did on ground, or they did ground testing and not in-flight testing.
Right.
And then with the Tiger team, like that should have been done. And they had, the thing with that team is they had it set up where you would get your research, where you would get your information, where you would report to. All of that was already set up for situations like this, but they chose not to do it. And so it was like, if it didn't work with the budget or with scheduling, they'd just kind of like cut it out. And
well, it's so weird, isn't it? Because that's what I added in mine was, I thought that was like really significant. The Tiger team, I mean, it was evidence that it worked amazingly. It saved lives of the one crew and brought them home safely. And they cut it out and they lost 2 separate shuttle and crew. And I'm thinking, what were they thinking? Because it proved how excellent it was. It was an amazing program. And they had, from what I understand, they had everything. I mean, they had all their technical expertise in different locations. So why in the world wouldn't you implement the Tiger team? And that should have been done instantly when they thought there was an issue. They should have had them right on it. So yeah, I don't know. I was confused by that, but that was one of my inputs in my paper.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about in the case that were important contributors to the mission's failure and why they're accountable.
I think some of the people that were contributors in this are
Mm-hmm.
who was it?
The top dogs.
Yeah,
NASA administrator.
I'm trying to find what his name was.
It's not O'Keefe, is it?
No, where's his name? Oh, it was McCormick, I think.
Okay.
He worked on the team that they put together, but it says they still had one scenario to run, but it was they didn't think that the debris would constitute a safety of flight issue.
Yeah.
And then it also let's see. Yeah, it said they would probably suffer significant tile damage, but that's all it would just be tile, so it would just need to be repaired when it came back. So
right.
he didn't think that it was anything to be worried about. And then there was someone else, but I don't remember who it was. Oh, one of the guys that worked like the program that they use, like the simulation kind of thing. Guy had only used it twice in his entire career at NASA, and instead of like talking to the other engineers that used it at a different base, he was just like, well, it worked for me, so
yeah,
here you go. This is my finding.
Yeah. Okay, I remember that. I didn't include it, but I remember that, reading that, thinking, there is a lot to this case.
Yeah.
A lot of technical stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like, what is the concept of team design? Hint: 5 conditions that, when present, increase the probability of team effectiveness. A, clear boundaries. B, compelling direction. C, structure. D, system that supports the team in completing their work.
I feel like NASA didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
They didn't have any kind of, the only clear boundaries they had were schedules and money. And so that was the only thing they paid attention to. And like they knew they were working toward getting the shuttles ready to go, but there wasn't really any structure, and they didn't support each other at all.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because looking at the structure in the little org chart and then listening to what you both of you just said, to me it's like they really needed to, like, so they who only had one focus in mind, which is what you were saying, Olivia, is like the budget and the schedule and all that. And to me, they really needed to have, I mean, they had all this amazing intelligence, you know, and the technical side. So to me, they really, instead of having it stair step up, they needed some lateral power. So instead of just having the NASA administrator at the very top, they really needed a couple people that were parallel with that level, and then another agency that was parallel with the second level on top. And I think it would have gone a lot better, because really you have the top dogs rowing in just that one direction. And then you have the people down below who all cared about safety and protocol and, you know, that type of structure, but they're all underneath it. So to me, you know, get overridden all the time. And I feel like kind of that's what they did. They got overridden all the time. So I think they need some, you know, same level administrators representing the technical and the safety side of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Seems like early NASA was very unorganized.
Yeah. Who would have thought, you know?
Right.
I mean, that's why I was really surprised by this case, because I figured, oh, you know, it's going to be NASA. I love space, so I'm enthralled with NASA.
Right.
But, you know, kind of looking at the details is kind of really disappointing.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary, you know, just like thinking about our government and stuff. If they're this unorganized, you know.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the concept of psychological safety? Hint, team climate and design that affects team behavior and performance. A, concept of risk-taking. B, culture. Or C, team unity.
Interesting. Okay, say the three options again.
Okay, A, concept of risk-taking. B, culture. C, team unity. So the question is, what is the concept of psychological safety?
Oh, okay. I don't think that there was any with NASA again, you know, because the engineers didn't feel safe to voice the reasons. Like I talked about one of the engineers, and he wrote like a really mad email about how they should have, you know, they need to pay attention to the debris, and they needed to upplay the fact that there was one scenario to go, but he didn't send it to them because he knew that it would not be accepted well, because they didn't want to hear it because there were no facts. So he didn't even send it. He sent it to his colleagues, but not like his managers.
Yeah, right.
So do either of you have any like personal experiences that kind of like go along with this case study? Or any others that you can think of, like any worldly things that have happened that like
no, but definitely not to this like extent. I mean, most of the companies I worked in, they've always been really pretty much unison, even though little, you know, departments have their ways of wanting to do things and stuff like that, but really they're still structurally sound, and they follow protocol, and they follow the rules, and there's policies. And so I think because, you know, of course it's smaller, so, you know, you can see things easier because everybody's kind of in one area, whereas NASA was all over the place, so it's much more difficult. So obviously they needed to do some implementations of, you know, meetings or something. But and so comparison to the company I work at now, there's some structures, but so much of the structures continually break. And that's just what people expect. And also kind of like a manipulation almost, because they know, you know, it's easy to distract. And I think that, you know, so similarly, I think NASA's kind of like the same way, like Olivia's saying. It's like, oh, you know, you have the protocols and you have structure, but nobody follows them. So when you try to follow them, they just get shot down. So you kind of give up.
Yeah, for sure. That's very important. Yeah. What about you, Olivia?
I'm trying to think, and like, I mean, it was so when I like worked at a daycare, like it was just like nobody, when I first started there, like nobody, something happened, and so nobody supported each other. And, you know, there was an issue, and so nobody was really, everybody was blaming everybody else. And instead of like just coming together and fixing the problem, it was like, well, they should have done this, they should have done this. And it was just chaos. It was horrible. The parents were super upset with us. And understandably, I mean, I was irritated that it was happening, but after that we had to do like team building, and it was like clearly we knew nothing about each other. It was like getting to know each other for the first time, and it really helped, you know, with the dynamic of work. But it was just, it took that to kind of make us realize that it was not a good work environment. So
yeah,
it's really important to be, you know, to have that team and that psychological safety. So
yeah. Okay, well, we kind of talked, I mean, you were kind of saying this before, Michelle, but what principles, if any, from this lesson's reading apply to this case? Does that make sense?
yeah. And so there's probably a few, but the one that stood out to me was just throwing in one direction, and kind of reminds me of, like, you know, the story, right, that we're reading in the book. When Catherine takes over, it was just completely broken. They had such a good company, but nobody was really on the same page, and they all had like their really good points and you know, good experience, but they just were not a team. And so, and even when she steps in to kind of, you know, put them together, you know, there's resistance, and there always is, you know, but it takes a really strong, confident person to step in and continue on with the plan that they know is correct. So I think that, you know, that's definitely something that NASA needed. They needed kind of like more of an objective person to really watch what was going on. I mean, it would have actually been probably a nice job for someone to have, to be the like overseer of what was going on, and if, you know, and just someone objective, like, you know, when the guy's trying to write the email and he wants to send it, it's like, wouldn't it have been great if he would have been able to send it to like more like maybe a mediator or arbitrator, or just someone objective that would have listened to it and put some energy into researching it, and then saying, hey, this is serious, and now you guys need to sit down and listen, you know. Kind of bring the team together.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking the same thing, that like they needed somebody who would be able to see both sides and kind of help them both, you know, get into the right mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we pretty much went through all the questions. Do you guys have anything else to kind of say?
6 more classes to go.
Yeah, I know. Do we need to do the sign up for the group leader now again?
What's that? Oh yeah, I just sent it today. Did you get it?
Okay.
But then I think I had to change it again. So, because Anna left the group, the one who got called to our group a few weeks ago, and then she actually had to drop out. So, and so I did a group again, and I really actually just have Sarah and Ariana doing like the last, I think we have 4 more after this.
Yeah,
so I think so. You guys in charge. Are you good with that? I mean, if you guys aren't, then we'll step in and help out. But if you and Ariana are good with handling the next couple of cases, that'd be great. If not, then we can do it.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. All right.
Yay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. Have a great weekend, you guys.
You too.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Oh.